Welcome to episode 13 of the Crowdcreate Mastermind. We're hearing from people that have run successful equity crowdfunding projects, learning their lessons, hearing exactly what yielded the highest results, what activities work well, and Start Engine, most recently partnering with Mr. Wonderful.
Thanks everyone for attending our Crowdcreate Equity Crowdfunding Mastermind. The purpose of this is really to bring together the community to support each other. You're all thought leaders in the space of equity crowdfunding. We both have campaign operators, we have platform itself, we have legal, we also have other thought leaders that also in the media space and whatnot. So really the purpose of this is to bring everybody together, highlight the work that you're doing, support each other, meet some really interesting people. The format of this, it's 1 hour long. We go around the room, typically 3 minutes each, and we ask, give a quick introduction, who you are, what you're currently working on, what are you most excited about in equity crowdfunding? And the third thing, is there anything the community can help you with? I'm absolutely excited. There's good friends here that we've known for a very long time. So let's get started. Michael, would you like to go first? Returning thought leader, and I think you literally wrote the book or writing the book on equity crowdfunding. So there you go.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I wrote the book. It's called Evergreen Startup. I recommend everybody read it. It's probably the authoritative book in the space at this point until somebody better writes one. So my name is Michael Burtov. I'm a serial founder. I've founded 4 companies. I brought several companies to a few million in revenue and a few million in venture funding. My current company, GeoOrbital, is the first company to have raised over $1 million with rewards crowdfunding, in our case, 1.26 million on Kickstarter, and over $1 million with equity crowdfunding, in our case, 1.7 million across 2 campaigns on Start Engine. So one campaign we maxed out at 1.07, another one we closed early. I also work with a lot of campaigns to launch them, and I teach crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding specifically, and alternative sources of startup capital for early stage companies at the MIT Enterprise Forum. And I've been involved with a number of incubators and accelerators associated with academic institutions like Harvard and private ones like Techstars. So I've been in the space for a little while, just in the startup ecosystem. And I'm a huge fan of the startup space, especially the equity crowdfunding space. And I do think it's the future of finance.
Michael, so I know the Reg CF is being raised to 5 million, or just in general, what are you most excited about right now in equity crowdfunding?
Well, I hope it actually does get raised. So Biden actually put a 60-day hold to review that registration. It's supposed to be raised. It's supposed to be bumped up March 15th, but that's probably going to get delayed. So my theory, my hope, and just following the space very closely, since I was a very active mover, very active first mover in the space, is that opening a Reg CF campaign is going to be a default step that a company makes right after they incorporate. So there's really no reason to not, because your securities are available for sale immediately after you form your company, well before your products are available. So I would expect, in the next 5 years, we'll see a lot more companies, and I advise a bunch of companies to do that now, is to open an evergreen, as I call it, crowdfunding round at the moment that they incorporate.
So Michael, is there anything the community can help you with in terms of in general?
Reach out if I can help with anything. Like I said, I work with a lot of campaigns. I'm a big advocate for the space. If you guys want to learn more just about my philosophy and predictions and views of the space, and literally I've worked with hundreds of campaigns, check out my book, Evergreen Startup. It's on Amazon.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Any questions or comments for Michael?
I know several of the other speakers are actually considering to do equity crowdfunding. So Michael's a veteran. If you have any questions.
Yeah, so I was one of the first ones. So I'm a huge fan of crowd movements in general. And the first crowdfunding campaign I launched was early 2017, literally a few months after this regulation came into effect, right after it became legal, when the space was completely unknown. I mean, honestly, 4 years ago when I started advocating and being active in the space, events like this didn't exist. Nobody knew anything about it, and now there's a renaissance. Venture capital is dying very slowly, especially in the early stage, and equity crowdfunding is blowing up. So this is an inflection point, and I'm happy to answer any questions. anybody might have.
So I want to make a comment. My name is Ruth Hedges, and I actually wrote Title 3 4A6, got it passed through Congress. And we've been advocating for this since 2012, and I produced a global convention in Las Vegas for 6 years. So there has been a lot of places for people to learn about this. And I've worked with US Chamber, and I've worked with the SBA and SBDCs. But the big problem really is that there is no real big money, and corporate America has not really come behind this. And that's why so few people understand or know what equity crowdfunding really is about when they start a business.
Ruth, that's a great segue. We'd love for you to introduce yourself next and
Sure.
share what you're working on.
Yeah, so I got together with a group of people in 2010, and we put together the first draft of what it was called the startup exemption. And we went around the country and tried to find people to help us bring this to Congress. Actually, Whoopi Goldberg was one of our first backers. And eventually we had the US Chamber of Commerce, Steve Case, and 50 other congressmen and senators and other people, powerful people who helped us work to get this passed. And on April 5th, 2012, President Obama signed it into law, the Jobs Act of 2012. And my two business partners were at the White House actually for the signing. So I've been at this from the beginning. And honestly, the biggest problem I see is that the industry does not want to play together. You can go to the Consumer Electronics Show every January in Las Vegas, and you'll see Sony and you'll see Apple and you'll see all the big tech companies happy to collaborate together to bring technology to the forefront. But you don't see that in the crowdfunding industry. And you know, and it's at the detriment of the industry, because there's so many companies starting up every minute of every day. And the last thing they hear about is equity crowdfunding. It should be the first thing they hear about.
Ruth, seeing as you, I think we all owe Ruth a debt of thanks for the gift of equity crowdfunding, right? I mean, you're one of the people who actually made it happen. But seeing as you made equity crowdfunding happen, do you think you could be an instigator in bringing the industry together somehow?
Oh, yes. I mean, I have had this. I wish I had $1 for every conversation I've had trying to understand why the funding portals can't collaborate, why the funding portals and the service providers, and there is no like national place where we all gather to advance the entire industry. I mean, when I was producing the global crowdfunding convention, we had people from 25 countries come, and today it's legal in over 50 countries around the world, because they came to this country, they learned what we were doing, they took that knowledge back, and now they work more collaboratively in their countries than I think we do here. And you know, we desperately need this. I mean, you know, one of the things that I'm working on diversity and inclusion in women, and getting more minorities to understand this as a way to access capital. And I'm working with Microsoft. We just did a summit over the summer. We had over 2,000 people attend. We worked with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we worked with a whole bunch of organizations like WeBank, which is a group of 4,000 women-owned businesses, and the Women's President Organization. And there's a lot of powerful organizations that have never heard of equity crowdfunding. I'm talking about some of the smartest people in the room. I mean, the United States Hispanic Chamber has 4.5 million small business members, and they don't have any programs involved in equity crowdfunding. So, you know, it's still, there's so much opportunity for those of us in the industry to help do this. And I would love to lead that charge if anyone wants to join me in that.
Ruth, round of applause, and thank you for everything that you're done. Maybe that would be a good segue to Anders Hill with Start Engine. I see Mr. Wonderful. I think he's a great spokesperson for Start Engine, bringing, you know, equity crowdfunding into the limelight in mainstream media. Anders Hill here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I see a couple familiar faces on this panel. As introduced, my name's Anders. I'm one of our account executives here at Start Engine. So my primary role, I'll say 9 to 5. It's probably more realistically like 8 to 8. But all I do every day is I talk to founders, like some of the people on this panel here today, to really educate them on what equity crowdfunding is, what potential values it could drive for the business. And then as an application-based platform, my primary role is to understand companies' businesses, what their traction looks like, what their community looks like, whether or not they're, a good fit for equity crowdfunding. And I'll ultimately be, pitching these companies to, our review board. Unfortunately, we don't have the bandwidth to support every startup out there. So we do look for certain criteria in companies, and I sort of lead that charge here on helping companies through the review process. And then you have obviously, people like Michael who, then successfully raise on our platform over and over again to sort of work on like the sales side of the business. But I would say, things that, I'm working on is we're having a lot of conversations these days about liquidity. So as some of you guys might be aware, Start Engine has built an alternate trading system that, basically, it's an open platform where people can buy, sell, and trade shares in these private companies after, a 12-month Reg CF holding period. And, this is sort of at the core of everything that we're doing here at Start Engine. It's been our vision long-term. How amazing would it be if you can, raise capital from, your community, but then after a certain period, provide them with an exit and provide them with the ability to trade and liquidate. So instead of waiting, 7 to 10 years for a company to be acquired or to merge or to go public, we think that this is going to add a tremendous amount of value for your company because, why would an investor not invest in your company if they have the option for liquidity down the line, especially compared to a company on our homepage, for instance, that's right next to it, that's not providing liquidity. So we're having, these conversations. It's what we think is, the future of equity crowdfunding is, this liquidity aspect. Obviously, the only company, and I have to be sort of careful here, what I can and can't say, the only company right now that's listed on Start Engine Secondary is ourselves. So we're trying to lead by example. We put ourselves out there. We're allowing, our shareholders to liquidate and sell their shares. But we foresee in 2021, a lot of other companies coming on board. And unfortunately, before that happens, there's not much I can say about Start Engine Secondary, or I'll be technically, promoting our own stock. But I'm happy to sort of, at least share the mindset around it. Would love you guys, some of your feedback from people in the room on how, liquidity would resonate in your eyes, but also in the eyes of your investors. And then I think one other thing, and I've mentioned this to Jeffrey and Ivan before, and what I think is a really important thing to note about equity crowdfunding, especially people in the audience, is I think the change to $5 million for Reg CF is huge. I think some could argue it is a tipping point in the industry and a sign that we're moving in the right direction. What I think is going to be the event that is a tipping point and people really starting to understand the power of equity crowdfunding is when a CMO reaches out to me. So every day, I'm talking to CEOs whose primary job is obviously to raise capital, but there's a lot of marketing benefits that go alongside with raising capital. So you're basically, providing your community with, a vested interest in your success. Let's say you're a brewery or a distillery, and, giving your community the opportunity to be an owner in that, they're going to be telling their friends, hey, let's go to this bar because I'm actually an owner in it. So there's a huge component of brand awareness, of community building, and there's a lot of marketing benefits that I think people really should be aware of just in the nature of equity crowdfunding. And I think the tipping point will be, a day that I'm talking to a CMO, and it's happened more recently with a couple of companies where the CMO is very involved in the raise. And I think that, once people and businesses start to understand the marketing component to, beyond just raising capital will be, a huge day for the industry. But I'm just here to be a resource. I talk to people every day, in this space. So I'm glad to be a part of this. Hopefully I can provide some value back to some people in this room.
Hey, I have a question for Anders, just coming from the perspective of someone who's represented, obviously, many companies that have used equity crowdfunding. And the secondary market, obviously, is something that's very important as it grows. But I'm curious, how are Start Engine shares doing on your own secondary market? Are they trading above? Are people buying it above the price that they paid for in the Reg A or Reg CF raises you did, or is it trading below?
I think today, so I actually just had a conversation internally about this morning, and I believe our share price might be trading a little lower than the last time that we raised. I think the last time that we raised capital was about $13 per share for our Reg A round. We raised about 18 million there, and now it's around 11.20, 11.25. But one thing to note is that for that Reg A round, we're actually, a lot of capital came in on that at around the $11 mark, and we actually changed it to 13 sort of right at the end. So it's been pretty stable. We've seen a lot of activity sort of week over week on people actually trading the shares, and I believe as of this morning it's around 11.25, which is basically where we raise capital at. And then obviously when we announce some of our financials later on in the year, we're expecting that to go up.
And what's the volume been like? I'm just curious, because this is a question that I get asked all the time. And I have some comments about it that I think will be helpful to everyone, but I'm just curious, like when you say people are trading it, is this a dozen people that have made trades, or is it thousands of people that are trading it?
I can't get into too much about like the volume. I would say it's more than a dozen, closer to the 1,000 range, and we're seeing a lot of activity every week. But unfortunately, I can't share numbers.
The numbers aren't publicly available, or you're an ATS. I assume that they're publicly available.
I'm just gonna tread lightly here, just to make.
Okay, I'll look it up myself. I was just curious because one of the issues that comes up is, and I know many of the people that are on this panel are going to be doing serial offerings, which my clients almost always do. And when you do a serial offering, let's say you do an offering at, like Start Engine did, and maybe you started at $10, and then the next time you do one, you're at $11. The next time you're at $12. The next time you're at $13. It's really hard to raise your valuation if there's a secondary marketplace telling you that your value of your shares are less than what you want to raise capital at. So there is a danger of companies going into a secondary market too early. I'm not suggesting it's not great for investors, because it is. You want investors to have liquidity, but if you are trying to raise capital as a company and your market price is being determined by the crowd and it's below what you're going to go into your next round for, it's really hurting you to have secondary trading. So it's something every company has to look at themselves. They shouldn't just assume, well, let's go do this because it's a great thing for liquidity. It's better to go to your investors up front and say, this is not a liquid investment. You're doing this like someone invested in Facebook when Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in his hotel room, and someone who sits there and says, I'm hoping someday this is going to be worth a lot of money and I can cash in there, but I'm not going to turn around and sell this tomorrow and make $1 on each share. Most companies do that. We very effectively with the, again, I represent the largest company to ever raise capital through equity crowdfunding, BrewDog, who's raised $130 million nationwide and worldwide doing this. So 120,000 investors around the world. We know how this works, and they've never created a public secondary market, but just like you are doing at Start Engine, they've had their own little private secondary market for their European shares, where once a year for a day, they let people trade, and it's great. But it's a private deal. It's not, you can't do it here in the US laws the way that they can do it in the UK, but it's a very, very interesting thing because people do love to have that liquidity. There's just other considerations you have to think about when you're a founder, about your company and you raising capital, that if you message your investors the right way and keep them as part of your family and your community, you use them as a marketing device, keep them informed, they don't care as much about getting a little bit of a return on their $500, in the next week or two.
Hey, Kendall, that's I got to butt in. You make excellent points. The other concerns I've heard is you're also pricing your options by trading on a secondary marketplace, which nobody wants.
Absolutely.
Which is just awful. And just from a marketing perspective, so Anders did talk about CMOs seeing value in this. You are eating up whatever demand you would have been pent up for your next
Bingo.
So there are definitely downfalls to trading on an ATS. That being said, if it's baked into the original security that you're selling, that might attract more sophisticated investors. So I've talked to family offices and VC funds who are super interested in this space specifically because that has the opportunity for liquidity baked in. But nobody's doing that. Nobody's actually baking in an obligation to sell on an ATS while they're selling their securities. But that's definitely, I think, room for movement. I think it's one of the evolutionary things that's going to happen in the industry.
Yeah, we are seeing people that I get clients all the time that are actually public companies. You can be a public company and use Regulation A. You can't use Regulation CF, but they can use Regulation A to raise more capital, and they can be traded on OTC and back in the past, NASDAQ and the NYSE, but those are kind of shut down for now for Reg A. But there is liquidity options out there in addition to the ATS. And don't get me wrong, liquidity is very, very important. It's just every company needs to think about what they're doing to themselves the next time they try to go raise capital by letting a handful of investors cash out that, you know, just want to make a quick buck. That shouldn't be what this is about. You should invite people along for the ride. You should have people excited about being part of your company and be in it for the long term, just like the angel investors who come in early, or the early, private equity investors who come in. Same thing. They should be looking for an exit down the line, but make them feel comfortable along the way that you're growing and keep them informed. God, that's the most important thing. Keep them informed.
Kendall, thanks for that. We'd love to hear from another founder. And by the way, Anders, there are questions in the chat. Alan Stone, he runs Wall Street Research, and there are some questions for you. So feel free to engage everyone. Also from another founder, Stanley Kim. Welcome, Stanley Kim.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Let me actually respond back to Kendall. So actually, we brought a board member on board specifically to kind of address the secondary market. And so what he did, and this is a big company, it's legal, CEO of LegalZoom. And what he does, he actually oversubscribes every year and a half with new investors to buy out old investors. So every year, let's say 18 months out, he says, anyone that wants to sell their shares, we're going to bring on, we've got investors on board. We're going to oversubscribe by another 20%. And if you want to sell your shares, now's a good time to sell your shares. You can hold on to it, but now's a good time. And so what they've consistently been doing is been able to go out and exit out some of their investors, employees, whoever want to, every 18 months. And so it shows a trajectory towards growth, but at the same time, actually, and also gives an exit to their investors as well too. And that's kind of one of the things we've been doing. So, do you want to continue with what we do?
Yeah, please. You can introduce yourself.
So my name is Stanley Kim. I'm the CEO of a company called Winsantor. It's here in San Diego, and we're a pharma company. So I've been really lucky to work with some of the most amazing people. I used to be an attorney at the Salk Institute. Got to work with Jonas Salk, Francis Crick, the discoverer of several Nobel laureates, some of the top scientists in the world. Started my first two companies in machine learning. So again, I got to work with the leading experts in neural networks, machine learning, AI, however you want to describe it. And then the first company was sold to Qualcomm. So we made money by selling originally to the government. We did the comm system for the tanks and aircraft carriers. And then eventually we went and did the noise canceling on a lot of the Bluetooth devices. This is early on, and eventually sold to Qualcomm. So most of the chips that you see on Samsung, LG, Huawei, Epido, anything that uses Qualcomm chips, the noise canceling is our technology. And then got involved with a guy up in LA, probably the richest doctor in the healthcare space. So went back to my original roots and kind of helped him as his technology advisor. That was a lot of fun because you don't get to work with guys who are multi-billionaires. And this guy was about 12 billion at the time. I'm not sure what he is now, but got to work with, see where things are going. And that was a lot of fun. And then kind of got lost and helped launch TEDMed and a bunch of other things and just doing things that were more fun. And I started another company in facial, again, machine learning, computer vision, seeing what that whole science of facial expression, seeing you're happy or sad or angry. And there was a TV show called Lie to Me. That was based off of our scientist. Eventually that got acquired by Apple. So the Face ID, what I was told is that Apple's really, it went on to become Face ID. And then now I'm in the pharma space. I'm developing what appears to be, there's a disease called diabetic peripheral neuropathy, or more generally peripheral neuropathy caused by diabetes, but it's also caused by other diseases. It's nerve degeneration caused by, caused by lots of different diseases or injuries or chemotherapy. And it's actually pretty prevalent, like half to 2/3 of all diabetics, a third of all cancer patients, a third of all HIV patients. So in the US alone, there's supposed to be 30 to 50 million people in the US that have this disease. We've appeared to have identified a brand new class of drugs, brand new science that seems to be growing the nerves back. And we're now in human trials and we're seeing this nerve growth come back. And the drug that we're developing, we're doing everything wrong. I mean, so I'm not from the pharmaceutical industry. So, if you're not from the pharmaceutical industry and you say we're developing, something that's disruptive to the patient, recover, or something that's good for the customer, something that they've never seen, that they really need. There's several 100 million people with the disease. we're reusing existing tools, and we're developing IP around this. I used to be an IP attorney, and we're making it affordable, right? And so all these things that you think that and something that people would want to use, you would think that would be great. But what I'm seeing as I go to these conferences, I mean, like 80% of all deals are in cancer. So every time I go to an investor kind of a partnering meeting, they always go, do you have something in cancer? Do you have something in this? Whatever's hot. Your drug is a drug from 40 years ago. We want something that's brand new, and you're going to charge too little for it, and you're going to make this topical. So we're doing all these things that are so wrong.
Stanley, what's their response to equity crowdfunding when you approach? And I know that we've discussed.
I mean, you already know the answer to that. You know, if you do anything with the crowd, that's wrong, right? And so this is interesting. You're only when you start a company in the pharmaceutical industry today, the biotech industry, you don't care about what customers, what patients. So your customers are not. I'm going to rephrase this: not patients, not doctors, not insurance companies, not hospitals, right? Your customers are the 10 pharma companies that are going to acquire you. That's it. So you start off with a huge management team that are looking just to sell your company. You don't even care if the drug works or doesn't work. So when I tell people that, so what was interesting for us is that we started getting checks, literally checks from patients that would say, "You're my only hope." So I get checks anywhere from $50 to $250,000. And what do you do with all that stuff, right? So we created we did through, Start Engine, we did it through WeFunder. And the main reason we did it through WeFunder is because most of the patients, most of their original customers, the original email list was through Beta Bionics, or Beta Bionics, which is a diabetes company. And so they had a huge list of all these people with neuropathy. So they knew our patient population, or they knew our patient population. So we did that launch, raised $600,000, not a lot, but enough to keep us afloat. And of course, every pharma company is like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. This is the wrong way to do it. You can never do crowdfunding in the biotech space." So it's really been interesting on my side to kind of do what would be normal in any other industry, but in the pharma industry.
What can we help you with now, Stanley? So what's next?
So this is the, part of it is on my advisor team is, so when I tell people about peripheral neuropathy, it's one of those things that there isn't a lot of people that know about the disease. So one thing is that we need to make people more aware and educate people, advocate for the disease. So on my board, I brought in a guy who, the founder of ResMed. So ResMed is a $40 billion company, $40 billion company. They coined the term sleep apnea. So we need to do the same thing. I brought in, as one of my board members, the head of Joe Biden's healthcare, the guy that, interestingly enough, he started something called Polywog, which is the original crowdfunding for healthcare, and unfortunately it failed. So what I need help with is to magnify what I'm trying to do. I'm one guy. We've got a very small company, and we're having a hard time trying to magnify this. And so, you guys and I have talked about how to magnify this, amplify what we're doing, and get more awareness for the disease, make more awareness for what we're doing, and help us disrupt the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, thanks, Stanley. And I think that's a good. Or does anybody have any questions or comments for Stanley?
Just one quick comment. Let me take off my lawyer hat and put on my hat I like much more, my entrepreneur and marketing hat. Stanley hit the nail on the head. This is all, and I've heard this from other panelists already too, and Ruth knows this from being around at the very, very beginning of this. A lot of this is legal stuff that you have to go through. A lot of this is accounting stuff you have to go through, but 99% of equity crowdfunding is marketing. 99% of it is getting the word out. And if you don't have a team behind you that knows how to get the word out, get to investors, platforms are great. Start Engine has a lot of people that come to theirs, WeFunder, Micro Ventures, Republic, they all have a lot of people there. But the cold hard reality is every client, and everyone who's on this panel probably will echo this, that's done this, probably 10% of the investors that come to their crowdfunding offering come from the platform directly, as opposed to through their own marketing efforts. I've run so many of these and raised hundreds of millions of dollars that I can tell you that almost always I tell clients up front, 85 to 90% of the people you're going to get to invest in your company are going to come through your own marketing efforts. Don't rely on any platform to do it. And this is part of what Ruth mentioned earlier. In Reg CF, the platforms can't play together. It can only be on one platform at a time. You can certainly run it on one platform, go to another platform, go to another platform. But with Regulation A, the platforms won't play. So if you're on one platform, they won't typically let you on another platform, or they won't, say, let's go to our investor base, even on an eat what you kill basis. And to me, that's silly. If you've got 300,000 investors or 500,000 investors who will invest in every one of these companies that's here, and they're doing a Regulation A offering, and they're doing it on their own website, and they're driving their own traffic to their own website like they should, so they can control those people they drove, why wouldn't the platforms play and say, we're going to go to our investors and let you raise from our people? And that's sadly lacking in today's world. It needs to change. I've been trying to get that to happen. I've had it happen once with Start Engine. I'll give them credit, but now they won't do it anymore. And so it's sad that people don't do it.
That's a good segue into Seymour. Seymour is a master, I feel, of online traffic. You've probably seen his viral MAGFAST wall charger. And Seymour, if you'd love to share insight on how you did it, who you are, and
Sure. So my name is Seymour Segnit, from England originally, as you might be able to hear, but American citizen by birth. I've been living in the States for about a little over 20 years now. And in 2013, I was trying to sort of tidy up the house, and I came up with everyone has this mess of all these devices to charge, messy wires all over the place, and I came up with an idea for a charger, put it into a traditional crowdfunding at the time, put it on Indiegogo, did quite well, had some success with that, grew too quickly, ran out of money, and failed. But a good thing happened along that journey, which is that I met Jeffrey McGannis, one of our hosts today, because I think everybody here probably knows that in his former life, he founded Charge Tech. And Jeffrey was sort of encouraged me to pick up and start over. With the experience of the first charging company, I launched a second one in 2017. We did all the legal moves. We've kind of purchased the mailing list from the old company and this, that, and the other. And I'm a great believer in the launch. I think that there's if you've got, ideally you have a big mailing list, but whatever mailing list you've got, I think telling people something exciting is going to happen on Thursday, 3 weeks from now, starts to kind of raise the pulse a little bit. So when we launched MAGFAST in 2017 into crowdfunding, we're actually going to be shipping at last, kind of a couple of months from now. We're finally in tooling after a process that has taken much longer than we had hoped. But when we launched from nothing, from a spare bedroom in 2017, we did $250,000 in the first 15 minutes. And this was into non-equity crowdfunding, just by having the list and saying, got this thing, I've got this idea, would love you to come along and take a look, and actually spending serious time putting together the presentation. There's I don't know if you actually, I remembered it just before, so I bought a copy of it down. This thing is the Bible for how to put a presentation together. I'm not saying that the people in this room are not already experts, but maybe somebody watching can benefit from this. Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs by Carmine Gallo. Because most folks put together rather confusing decks. If you watch most of the presentations in our equity crowdfunding industry, you can often be left. I sat in on a demo day the other day, and I couldn't really tell you what two of the three companies were doing afterwards. And I consider myself to be, at least average intelligence. So I think really spending time thinking about articulating what it is you're doing is worthwhile. I've rather cheekily put a URL up there for anyone who's interested. If you do that, you can see the original, or you can see the latest version of the original presentation and how we articulate for consumers what it is that we're doing. Like we make the case for why our simple chargers. There's people in this room trying to cure cancer. I'm just making, I hope, not nicer than average chargers. But nevertheless, we all charge our devices multiple times a day. So there's definitely a market out there, tens of billions of dollars market, and we're having a crack at it and trying to bring a little style, a little thought, a little design to a market that's generally made up of kind of cheap junk that breaks too quickly. Anyway, bringing this into equity. So we launched on Net Capital. With respect to Anders here, I just want to give a plug for them because their name hasn't been mentioned yet in this gathering. We just thought that they're absolutely fantastic. Just the team there was great. They really got under the skin of what we're trying to do. They actually listened when we said we thought we might be able to create a bit of a pop at the beginning with a launch, and the result of it was we launched on. I love the idea of doing everything that the experts tell you not to do. So we launched on Thanksgiving Day at 4 p.m. That's ridiculous, Seymour. Why are you doing it on Thanksgiving Day? Everybody's with their families, everybody's busy. And I said, well, the reason we're going to do it is because everybody will remember the time and the date, right? We started promoting it. Well, it was Reg CF, right? So we couldn't promote that we were doing shares or an offering until we had filed Form C. But we do, most weeks we do a little update for our crowd, for our pre-order customers. I'm in this little green screen room here. We do a little video. Actually, later this afternoon, I'm recording a little update in this room. And so in the weekly emails and little video blogs that we did for a couple of months beforehand, we said, Thanksgiving Day, 4 p.m., you want to be here. There's going to be something kind of amazing happening. And carefully structured the presentation, really thought about it, built the slides really carefully. And what happened was that word leaked out, and because the platform had to be ready for a bit of a rush at 4 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, actually some people snuck in early. But when we got our folks along there, we crashed the servers. And by the time the servers were going to back up again a couple of hours later, we were sold out. I don't know.
How big is your email list, Seymour, or your audience?
Well, the people who cared, we think was about 3,000 or 4,000. I misspoke slightly. What we did was we actually did the presentation 1 week before Thanksgiving, announcing that the doors would be opened on Thanksgiving, and we then did some work in between. So I guess it was November the 19th. We invited everybody for the presentation, 4 p.m. Again, it was another Thursday, 4 p.m. Thursday the 19th. Did the presentation. About 3,000 people attended that presentation, and a few more watched the replay afterwards. And we did something that I want to strongly suggest for anyone who's interested in this kind of, building up some pressure before the thing opens, which is we had our people register. We said, you just want to make sure that your account is set up. We're only allowed to raise $1 million at the moment. We're not sure if there's going to be enough to go around. So to make sure you can get in, why don't you go set up your account right now? And we gave them a URL, and they could go and get themselves set up. And 2,000 or 3,000 people registered.
I hate to interrupt. It's a great story, but I just want to send a note of caution to everybody listening that there are a lot of regulations related to what they call priming the pump in the securities world. I understand. I don't want people to kind of misconstrue what you're saying. It's a great story. I think it's great for traditional marketing or for rewards crowdfunding, like your Indiegogo. But if you are to sell securities, you cannot make a solicitation to sell securities before you are officially launched on the platform. And the SEC defines a solicitation in a very fluffy way. So by saying sign up for this platform beforehand, we have big news coming in a week. Ramping up your marketing spend might be interpreted incorrectly. And another note about Net Capital as well. So there's a reason that Net Capital, I think, hasn't come up. Net Capital has a pretty unique business structure. You do side-by-side offerings by default and all that kind of stuff. But in Net Capital, there's also a lot of disadvantages to using a small platform. For one, they're technically unstable because they crashed. But also, you don't own the investors. So Net Capital, I don't think, my personal take is they're not really in the philosophy of crowdfunding. For example, you don't have contact information for your investors through Net Capital. They keep those. So it's a unique platform that I think there's definitely a lot of structural reasons that it hasn't been widely discussed in the ecosystem. I just wanted to throw that in.
So thank you for raising those. The point about priming the pump is extremely important for anybody watching this. And maybe I made it sound a little too easy because we combed through, we got sort of top tier legal advice, and we planned the whole thing out extremely carefully. We didn't mention that we were offering equities until we were fully compliant. And I think I hinted at that just now. We said, we've got an important presentation, please come. We did not say anything about shares or equities. It could have been a new product launch. It could have been anything else. So we were very careful not to discuss equities beforehand, and we had all of our stuff kind of reviewed carefully. So I have no concerns that we weren't compliant, but I'm grateful to you for raising it, because I might have made it sound a little too easy. And anybody looking at doing it CF should make sure that you check the rather bizarre kind of SEC requirements
Seymour,
very carefully.
Seymour, the story you're sharing is actually really relevant for a lot of the other founders on this call, and I'd love to, before we jump to another, how can we help you? How can the community help you on what you're working on, Seymour?
Well, I kind of said before we went live, I feel we had some success kind of getting the first million. We're going to go out in a few months. Take advantage when we hope and believe that the limit is about to be raised to 5 million. There's good evidence that we would have sold more than 1 million if it had been available. So we're going to go. If anyone's interested in following along, if you register at that URL, you'll just be on our list, and you'll see the emails and stuff that we send out. If anybody wants to, model what we get right and avoid what we get wrong. I would just like to keep in touch, because the project that we've got has turned out to be bigger than we had thought. I had originally thought, we'll raise 1 million or 2, that'll be great. We're doing pre-orders, it's all going to be fine. I think actually we're onto something rather bigger. So our appetite is going to go beyond the 5 million. We're already doing the work for Reg A, but whereas we've been very successful asking our customers to join us on the journey at the start, we're going to need to use more traditional types of marketing and publicity as we go to the larger numbers. And there, I feel we have a great deal to learn.
Thanks, Seymour. And so all the crowdfunding insights that you have, really, the purpose of this is to help each other. Nathan, would love for you to share. First-time crowdfunder. Seymour, if you could, there's 7 years of wisdom, but Nathan, would love for you to share what your equity crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. Hi, guys. My name's Nathan Tahbaz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hudson Space Systems. We're an aerospace startup out of Hoboken, New Jersey. The goal of our company is to disrupt and make more accessible access to microgravity research services, which isn't a super sexy hook, but the idea is there's an immense amount of research currently being done in space in a microgravity environment, but it's restricted to a very small pool of customers. But there's a huge potential pool of customers that could benefit if they had access, if they could overcome the hurdles that are currently in place. So our company is offering what we call microgravity as a service, a sort of full stack way for people, specifically researchers, whether you're in academia or in corporate R&D, to access microgravity environments. We're enabling people to do this via these low-cost launch vehicles that we're developing that are fully reusable, and also via our full microgravity as a service approach. So we currently have a crowdfunding campaign running on microventures, which is why I'm talking to you guys now.
Thanks, Nathan. What can the community help with? Any insights that you're looking at specifically, or questions that you had? You have a lot of successful campaigners on the call.
We're always looking to see what people did right in their campaigns, to sort of inform how we progress. I think we're about halfway through, but we're also just always looking to build our network and expand.
Awesome. Thanks. Kendall, just in the interest of time, we have 15 minutes left. Kendall, you've launched a number of campaigns. Maybe if you can share some insights, then Nathan, and introduce yourself, what you're working on.
Yeah, Nathan, first of all, I love, one of the things I like people to do is understand the power of the presentation, as Seymour mentioned, the power of the video, if you have a video, which I think is a necessity to doing this on a big, big scale, especially with Regulation A, where you're trying to raise, tens of millions of dollars potentially. So, you did a great job with that. I was looking at your page. I like the little animated video that you did that's very simple. Sometimes you have to explain your concept to people in a simple way before you get into the nitty gritty. And you did a really good job of that. It really just comes down to getting as many eyeballs on the page as possible. I mean, statistically, you're probably going to convert less than 5% of the people that show up on the page and look at the page. So you got to drive a lot of eyeballs. And in that same regard, I guess one thing, I just to give another example, because I think everyone should look at the page that Nathan has at MicroVentures. It's really cool. I just launched a Regulation A. I've done many of these. We just launched one a couple of days ago for a company that is basically, I like to say it's fantasy sports meets Wall Street. Basically, it's a company where individual sports athletes, golfers, IndyCar racers, boxers, you get to invest in a company that's actually training them, and in exchange for your investment, you get a percentage of the winnings of each of the athletes that they sign. So it's literally like real life fantasy sports. You're watching a game on Sunday, a race on Sunday, and if your guy wins, you get a part of that. Really interesting idea. It's been done with accredited investors for years, but it's never been done where the average sports fan can put $150 in and own a piece of several athletes. I'm going to give the URL so people can look at it. And the reason I do this isn't just because I think it's a cool company. Actually, they have a partnership with Andretti Autosports. Michael Andretti is part of this thing. It's not just a bunch of fly-by-night guys trying to do this. These are heavy hitters involved. But if you look at, I'll put the URL into the comments section, but it's EVO invest.com. And this is Reg A being run on their own website. It's not being run on any platform. Love to have platforms out there say, yeah, we'd like to have Evo Invest on our platform also to reach your investors, but they won't do it. But the reality is, if you look at this, they have 3 videos on their front page. One is a animated video that explains the business to people in a much better way than I just did. One is one that's sort of the vanity video that talks about the excitement of it. And then there's one from the Andretti Autosports team talking about their involvement. So you have to think about how you're going to reach different audiences and how you're going to reach out to those people and get them to that page. Racing's only one part of this company. In a couple of weeks, they're going to announce their golf vertical, and they'll be going out to the golf publications and golf social media, and then doing the same thing with MMA fighting and all of that. So you have to kind of think ahead, because I'll leave it with this. Every crowdfunding campaign is the same. It's a reverse bell curve. You start off at the top, you raise a lot of money, and then it goes down. And then as you get to the end, when FOMO kicks in, it goes back up. The key is when you're down at this bottom part, when you're down here, to find ways to get the blips, to do this, to make it look more like kind of like an EKG, where you're building in things that people are going to start watching you again, rather than it just being a flat curve and then going up at the end. And that's the hardest part about marketing these things, is finding out how are you going to drive people during that middle part where it's just a few people investing every day, and turn that into, wow, we got 50 investors yesterday. Wow, we got 70 investors the day before, rather than we got 4 or 5.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kendall. And I think Nathan and Kendall, you two should connect about influencers and equity crowdfunding. It's interesting that EVO had Mario Andretti. I know other successful campaign owners, Nathan. Bill Nye, the science guy, did Rayton Solar. Nathan, we recommend, I don't know, if anybody knows Elon Musk, go and give him a call to get Hudson Space, him as an advisor. But yeah, any comments or questions for Kendall?
Hey, Jeffrey, Frank Sid, Crowdchayne. And I wanted to actually comment about something that Kendall had said earlier, because I do come from the world of the broker-dealer. And it's very common for the broker-dealers to syndicate deals with each other. And I don't know if it's a mechanism of the technology. I'm not sure if it's just an unwillingness to not partner or work together. Although I think Start Engine is got some interesting stuff in play that they brought to my attention from the last time that we had our panel. But to me, it is crazy that you have all these platforms, you have clients. Product is there's a limited amount of product, and right now it's like you can't really keep it in-house almost, because everybody's putting cash into anything but the dollar, right? People want to invest in something else. So it makes sense that there should be more syndication. And we're actually working, myself and one of my partners, we are working with a company that's doing some technology that they kind of want to layer on top of sites for this purpose. That's one of the reasons why he and I were both from the broker dealer world. He and I both looked at it and like, man, we got to get in with these guys. But it is insane to me that the collaboration doesn't seem to be there, and almost like a disinterest in the collaboration. So I 1000% agree with you that for especially to do the big deals, if you're going to do a deal for a couple $100 million, there's probably 2 or 3 platforms that could get that done, maybe.
Frank, I'd love to transition to you because we're in the final 10 minutes. Also, we're getting some questions in the Zoom Q&A section. So if anybody wants to answer, there's a few questions to founders. So feel free to answer there. But Frank, if you can introduce yourself. And I know we're only in the last 10 minutes, so keep it
yeah. And just a reminder, these are monthly masterminds. So the next one is on March 2nd at the same time. And we encourage everybody in this group to really connect, to help each other. We'd love to see Nathan have a successful raise, a new video, an influencer by the time we meet again next month. So all in the spirit of supporting each other, Wisdom of the Crowds community. We encourage everybody to connect after. So yeah, Frank, would love for you to go next. If you could keep it to 3 minutes as well, because we have 2 more.
I promise it'll be 4. So yeah, look, Crowdchayne is it's a portal that the vision, the concept is that we want to have investors put their money alongside institutions, alongside some of the VC funds. I think that's the inflection point, really. And although I know some people may not like the VC funds, people buy from people they like, people they know, people they trust, right? So if you can get, I feel the right. If we can get the investors that are killing it and continually making money, and you're hearing about them, and they back crowdfunding, that is when I think we're going to be seeing this really explode. And the fact is that institutions drive everything, right? That's just the way of the world. So there's no reason why the regular investor shouldn't be also putting their money alongside the bigger institutions or the smart money, so-called. The other thing is, to answer your question about what I'm excited about in crowdfunding, right now, honestly, to me, my biggest excitement was this whole Wall Street bets versus Wall Street thing, because I wouldn't buy or sell games, I wouldn't do any of that stuff, but I love the fact that 2 million people got together and basically just all this camaraderie and all this stuff got together to basically take the stock up, whatever direction it'll end up in, I don't know. But I think that that's really a case study and a testament to the potential for crowdfunding. And what I need help with, or what I would like to see really, again, is I would like to see more collaboration, man. I think that this is not a race for any one person to be like the top of the heap. There's JP Morgan, there's Morgan Stanley, there's Goldman Sachs. There's going to be a lot of crowdfunding platforms. And I believe that technology is probably going to fix this more so than individual personalities.
No,
so I hope that was 3 minutes.
Thanks, Frank. And then Nathan, something that we used to do on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, we also did cross promotions and collaborations with other campaigners. And actually, there's something called super backers, where if one backer supports one campaign, they also support Michael's wheel, and they also bought Seymour's charger, and they're going to buy, Vela Motors, car next. So we're all here to support each other. As Frank said, it's just maybe Kickstarter and all of those traditional, maybe Anders, if you had any insight on that, what is the likelihood of somebody backing one Start Engine campaign that they back 5 or 10? Do you actually know?
So what I'll share is I think, all these platforms out there are great. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about any of the platforms. We're playing in the same space, helping entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. One of the things that, Start Engine does that's different, and I haven't been able to see this from other platforms, is that when we need capital, we turn to the crowd. So we've raised, I think our last round was 18 million, and over time, we've accumulated 25,000 shareholders, and this is a very unique community at Start Engine, where they make up about 40 to 50% of all the investment activity on our platform. So I know that there was some numbers being thrown around earlier on how much of this raise should you expect to come from your own marketing efforts and from your own community versus how much is the Start Engine community going to come in and donate. So we typically see on any given raise, about 50% is more than likely going to come from the Start Engine community. And I think the reason why our percentages are very high is because when we raise capital, we turn to the crowd. And if you're a Start Engine shareholder, you'll be able to have, a 10% bonus shares on any investment that you're investing on our platform. And although, there is a slightly higher cost to that capital for the company raising, this is a great community to get eyeballs on, to have, their eyeballs on your campaign. And the way that we go about, promoting your campaign is by, on day one, we send out an email to the most active group of investors in our network, which is the Start Engine shareholders. So that's going to help you build momentum and get immediate visibility into the people that are spending over and over again on our platform. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it is a unique sort of thing to think about, is that, the Start Engine community, the shareholders of our company are very active, and they invest over and over again.
Love that. Thanks, Anders. We have one more equity crowdfunding company, and then we have two more that's actually in the real estate side. So would love to hear, even if those real estate investors are investing in startups as well as an asset class. But William, if you'd like to go next with Vela Motor.
Thank you. This has been great. I've actually learned a lot. So I appreciate everybody that's participated. And this is my first event to actually participate. So thank you for having me. I do feel very blessed to be here. So a little bit about us, a little bit about me. My partner and I, about 4 years ago, really we're looking into how can we help the current internal combustion engines to improve their efficiency. And my partner just happens to be a genius, which is awesome. But what he does is he looks at the overall components and goes in and focuses on what is actually the root cause or the root problem that we're having. And what we found was that the internals of the internal combustion engine, they have not changed since the internal combustion engine was created over 140 years ago. And so we thought that would be a good place for us to start. And so what we did is we looked at the components and realized that there is a real opportunity there. And what we found through that is that we can increase fuel efficiency significantly across all platforms, across all engine types, across literally any type of fuel type that currently runs through an internal combustion engine. And we can improve efficiencies anywhere from 50 to 100%. And it's so we're actively engaged in the prototyping stage. We are doing the necessary research to take it to the markets, and we are at that point where we do have a working prototype. We have proven the technology, and we're ready to take it to the markets. And so for us, for me, this has been fantastic to see what everybody's done to get to where they want to get to. I guess my biggest question is, how did you guys get to that point, and how do we get to that point to where we can take our engine and license it to every manufacturer around the world?
Michael, you had something to share?
Yeah, I mean, it's I can share. It's a little off topic, but I just wanted to reply to what. So I wanted to answer one of the questions that was posed to us, and just a quick reply to Frank about the Reddit Wall Street Bets thing. I think everybody, I think it's really popular. Just on a note, I'm a huge advocate of the crowd space. The crowd did accomplish something amazing. The unfortunate thing is that the media or nobody here is talking about that funds generally get their money from things like pension funds and other people's life savings. So some idiots on some forum defrauded the market and stole money from a grandmother is not a thing to be celebrated universally. That's what they did. It was a classic pump and dump. It was a bunch of people that got together and orchestrated a fraudulent act. What might not have been illegal, but I would think was definitely unethical. And people lost their life savings because of it. So yes, in some cases, the little guy against the big guy, like the individual retail investor against the big funds. But the problem is that the big funds get their money from the little guys. That's the money that they invest. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear. I'm very happy that this happened, but I want us to have all of us in the media, and I honestly blame the media for not having an intellectually honest conversation about what impact it actually has on real people. What just happened. And I hope this gets legislated. I hope there is precedent. I hope that there's finally guidance whether financial speech is protected speech under the US Constitution. I hope all of these things get settled because of this, but I think we need to have an honest conversation about that. This is not a universally good thing that just happened. But anyway, that's a different topic. There was a very tactical question that was asked about when something goes wrong in a crowdfunding campaign. And I just wanted to add a little caveat. So the problem with crowdfunding, whether it's rewards or equity crowdfunding, is that it's really transparent. And all of these platforms, Kickstarter, for example, if you Google the product's name, the Kickstarter campaign will come up first, right? Just because Kickstarter is a massive platform. Start Engine and WeFunder are also getting to be so large that if you Google the company or the product's name, that platform's campaign is going to come up oftentimes before the website of the actual company.
Michael, sorry, I do have to cut you short. We're running really low on time. Ruth, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say the GameStop thing proved something I've been saying for a decade, which is we have trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines of 350 million Americans, and they could be crowdfunding if they just knew it was a thing. Because look what they did when they saw the GameStop opportunity, but they don't even know these. WeFunder exists, Start Engine. They don't know any of these platforms. They don't even know it's a thing. So that's what we're failing miserably, branding and scaling the idea of equity crowdfunding.
Ruth, that's a phenomenal point, actually, that I didn't think about until you just said it. But I do want to move along to Mark. I know Dylan, you know Mark, but you actually mentioned to have Mark say something. So Mark, if you can do a quick intro.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is newer to me and learning a lot. My name is MarkZ. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I operate one of the highest producing real estate teams in the country. We sell close to 1,000 houses every year. Sold over $1 billion in real estate in my career. And I joined forces with Dylan, part of Borland Capital. My seat on the bus is to raise capital. So Dylan was kind enough to include me in on this, and that's it.
Nice, Mark. How can we help you?
You can help me by sending people my way that are looking to get a great return on their money. We're building a fund right now, and the goal is to get to $1 billion in properties, and we're moving fast. The returns have been great. The past experiences have been exactly what we promised and then some. We're looking for properties all over the country, and we're obviously looking for equity investors that want a great return with management that has done this many times before. It's not our first rodeo.
Thanks, Mark. On our last mastermind, we had a real estate, and one of the guests said that his main marketing channel is Instagram, where he's getting a lot of investors because he's teaching people how to fix and flip properties. I noticed that you've done some interviews and podcasts. What is your secret to acquisition of investors and whatnot?
Yeah, Instagram's been huge. You can find me on Instagram at Sold by MarkZ. That's Sold by MarkZ. So Instagram's been huge. A lot of educational videos. You know, this generation, they want content. Content is king. So the more consistent you are with putting out information, people will perceive you as the expert, and you'll start to build a brand and start to build a following. You know, everybody has an audience out there, whether you think you have value or not. And you don't know who your audience is, but you've got to constantly just put out content, and you've got to be consistent about it. Most people start and stop, and you know they stop right before it's ready to take off. Is what I find. You know, I built over 300,000 followers, and we're trying to hit 1 million. So we're not there yet, but consistency is the key.
Incredible, Mark. Thanks for that. And yeah, actually, that's a whole other conversation. We'd love to you to learn on how you do content marketing. And please come back. Our real estate masterminds are really good too. Dylan, we'd love for you to finish it off and introduce yourself and what you're working on. How can we help?
Yeah, hey guys, Crowdcreate. Thank you so much for having me here. I'll be mindful of the time. Just really awesome to hear everybody's experience on this panel as well. I'm with Borland Capital Partners. We're a private equity firm. Our specialty is really in multifamily real estate. To date, we've raised over $250 million. In essence, a lot of that has been through crowdfunding, right? So the little guys, the guys are putting in the $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 investments. You see a lot of other people in the real estate space that have done very well at this. People like Cardone, which most of you are probably familiar with. So it's been an awesome thing for us. But again, our experience, a lot of our deals are crowd-funded deals per se. We actually had a fund, which was a crowd fund, as well as a $20 million Reg A fund also. So we've had a lot of great success here. And I think, one of the questions today was, I kept hearing 2 times, people collaborating more in this space. And, what am I most excited about? I think we have an opportunity over the next decade to really be the new financiers of the world. I mean, traditionally, for the last several hundred years, there's been a small group of people that have really kind of controlled the financial markets, how we looked at, raising capital. It was kind of a good old boys club. And I think as we start to move into this new decade, I'm really excited about crowdfunding. And I think it hasn't really come to the forefront because we didn't have the technology, right? Back then, it was kind of who you knew. Did you read the newspaper? What good old boys club were you a part of? And those were the people who were making the investments and giving deals to one another. But now with technology and people being able to act all over the world, I think we're moving into a decade. We're gonna change the whole financial space, which I'm looking really, really forward to that. And the power is in the people. I'm a big believer in a hive mentality, a collective mentality. And like Ruth had said, traditionally, this stuff wasn't made public, right? People don't know. It's like when you thought about investing, you went to your 401k or IRA or whatever the institutions are out there, and they put your money into some BS fund and you don't even know what's going on. And so now it's, the word's getting out there. There's all these alternative investments. I mean, real estate's just a small fraction of that. And you guys can see. So I'm really happy to see the SEC, advocating and promoting for these opportunities to come online, more the mom and pop person to invest. It's just an exciting time to be in live. Everybody on this panel right now is at the forefront of changing how we fund businesses, how we fund investments, anywhere from charitable causes to people in need to you name it. And there's trillions and trillions of dollars sitting on the sideline in people's pockets. We're just in an exciting space right now. So
Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah. If I could just 60 more seconds, I think, how do we help collaborate? Collaboration's a big thing in this space. We launched a website to try to solve just that, at least in the real estate space, called the equitycollectives.com. And it's really a bunch of equity guys, crowdfunding guys getting together, figuring out how we can collaborate, help each other raise capital for deals, improve our skills and our skill set. So you guys check it out. Maybe it's the start of something, collaboration is definitely the key for sure.
Motivational, Dylan. Great way to end it. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone for your time. And it was such a privilege to meet you, Ruth, the queen, the queen of crowdfunding. We've all heard of you, and I'm actually really happy to have shared the panel with you. And everybody here is a thought leader. On these Crowdcreate masterminds, we bring these thought leaders to the front of the room to share their insights with you. We believe in the wisdom of the crowds. Every week, we come to you with a new episode to share these insights to help you get ahead.